Today's reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Is God present even there where there is ignorance? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 1, makes a reference to the divine light that is obscure to the rational faculty, but that enlightens our higher nature. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Reason recoils from this statement with innumerable questions. What is this darkness? Is it conscious that it should comprehend anything? What sort of light would be capable of shining in darkness without transforming at least that part of the darkness in which it shines into light? Does this light shine only at night? And if so, why only then? The solution is that, to divine sight, even daylight seems darkness. The sun itself, like the moon which shines only by reflected light from the sun, is but a kind of reflection of the cosmic light, which, being immaterial, is invisible to the eyes, but which is the great source of all material reality. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda describes his youthful visit to Ram Gopal Muzumdar, the sleepless saint, who lived in the vision of that hidden light. Around midnight, Yogananda wrote, Ram Gopal fell into silence, and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed the same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of the infinite vault, which I beheld with interior vision. Why don't you go to sleep? Sir, how can I sleep in the presence of lightning, blazing whether my eyes are shut or open? You are blessed to have this experience. The spiritual radiations are not easily seen. The saint added a few words of affection. This is the light that shineth in the darkness. It has been described variously in the great scriptures. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter, the devotee Arjuna is given an experience of the infinite state and exclaims in awe, if there should rise suddenly within the skies sunburst of 1,000 suns, flooding earth with beams undeemed of, then might be that Holy One's majesty and radiance dreamed of. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Well, good morning, everyone. Tomorrow is our nation honors Martin Luther King, Jr., and tomorrow we'll have the 14th year in which we present a program. It's a free program at the East West Bookshop in Seattle, and includes the words of these two great men, Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi, and video clips and so forth, and music. All combined. So it's a popular program and you're all invited. Great adventure also for teens and so forth. So it fits in rather nicely with today's topic. You know, the first few weeks of our annual readings that we do are somewhat, what's the word, esoteric. And you know, the divine light that manifests this world and also has many other forms, including the Word, as it's mentioned in St. John's Bible. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And nothing that was made was made without the Word. And so these are very metaphysical concepts, and given the program tomorrow night, I think we can fit these two together somewhat nicely. But you know, I heard about a nun, and she was a sleepwalker. Okay, so that's how they knew she was a Roman Catholic. Anyway, let's roam about ourselves here. This concept of darkness and light, you know, we see them, typically we explain to them good and evil and so forth. And no great spiritual teaching can be considered great unless it answers the great questions of life. When I was a child, I'd pester my mother, or so she said, with these, quote, great questions. Why are we here? Who made us? And so forth. I doubt I was worried about suffering and evil at that age, but maybe I was. I don't remember. And she said I just pestered the heck out of her. But, you know, most of us are too busy to think of these things. Sufficient unto the day are the problems we have in our own lives to worry about everybody else's problems or where the problems come from. But nonetheless, truth-seeking souls down through the ages. And in fact, and all of us really in some way, when we are suffering, when evil comes to us or our loved ones, do we ponder the greater questions of life. And so we see in the lives of Mahatma Gandhi and his protege and really disciple, as he put it himself, Dr. King, we see on the large stage of human history and human life, the confrontation of good with evil. The duality in that Leela, that play that goes on, is thought by some to be an eternal Leela, and who's going to argue with that? No matter what the world is going through, there's good and evil. But today's teaching is far more subtle than that. It doesn't just end with the eternal wheel of suffering, samsara, and because it's about how to get out of suffering. In the Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, "Get away from my ocean of suffering, O Arjuna." And so let's go a little bit more subtle. The light, I'm not going to talk about the eternal light that is seen deep in meditation or that Yogananda saw in his presence of Ram Gopal Muzumdar. But I want to acknowledge that teaching. Those of us who have had the privilege and the commitment to meditation most of our lives can attest to the presence of that light, and I add my testimony to that of others. But here today I want to talk more specifically about our lives. How is it that light and darkness do, in fact, seem to coexist in our lives? Imagine yourself, and I don't think it's too difficult to imagine. There you are, maybe you're having a bad day. Maybe you're upset with somebody. And then suddenly you get a phone call from a dear friend and with some great news. In an instant your mood changes. 1 minute angry or irritated, the next minute joyful. And so are we the causative elements in our joy? We can shift one shoe to the next, one mood, if you will, to the next. We are simply not what we think we are, nor is the world around us, as science keeps repeating to us. The world is very different than what our five senses tell us. And so, light and darkness, how can it not comprehend it? You see, the scriptures say, Yogananda taught and other great saints, that this light becomes dark by gradation, by degrees, and that ultimately all there is anyway is this light. And the more we live and the more we contact that, it becomes increasingly easy to live in that and not be touched by the ebb and flow of light and darkness in our lives. This is the source of the power that such people as Gandhi and King illustrated in their life. There are times when sadness and grief and depression and despondency, failure and so forth can overwhelm us. If we do not have an inner life, if we don't know the unshakable experience of inner peace, then these things like a wave that overtakes us will smash us down to the ground. Padma and I like to body surf. She does it a lot better somehow. I'm always getting trashed. I come out of the water bleeding and that sort of thing. And next time we go, I'm just going to watch. I get creamed every time. I think I'm maybe a little too aggressive about what waves I catch or something, but it's a lot of fun. It's just that I get wiped out every time. It reminds me, Padma once sent me to buy a carton of milk at the store. She said, "Can you get a carton of milk?" She said, and if they have any avocados, get 6. So I came home with 6 cartons of milk. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, they had avocados." Now, if you're a guy, you get it. Maybe. Because here's, and if you don't get it, forget it. Okay, just. I think Padma still doesn't get it, but anyway. But see, you see, this is our dilemma. Well, okay, I have other dilemmas, but later. The dilemma we all have goes something like this. That light, that divine presence, resides at the heart of every atom. It resides within ourselves. Wherever we are, there we are, or whatever that expression is. Therefore, whatever level of consciousness possesses you is, for you, that reality. It's amazing to me. I've been consciously on this spiritual path most of my adult life, and so have many of my friends. I've lived in 2 of the Ananda communities, and there are saintly people in these communities and in others around the world. But if you've studied the lives of saints, and if you know anything about the lives of some of the disciples of our guru here, Paramahansa Yogananda, who lived in America during his life and in the 20th century, so we have much more information, and many people who knew him, including our founder, Swami Kriyananda. You'll see in the lives of people who are striving and who are in fact saintly, you will see in them sometimes really obvious flaws. And so we see that too, even in the lives of Gandhi and Dr. King, who struggled with all sorts of different, otherwise human flaws. The way Kriyananda put it is that at night, if you're in a typical traditional Catholic church or Christian church where they have stained glass, at night you look at the stained glass from inside and it's just pretty dark. It just looks sort of dull and uninteresting. But when the sun comes up and the sun comes through the panes, it's brilliant. It lights up with all these colors. And I remember when I first heard Kriyananda, when I was much younger, make this expression. A bell went off somehow. Well, a light, not a bell, went off, which he said, as we grow spiritually, as we become more centered in ourselves, as we become more conscious and aware, more and more power starts, spiritual power and so forth, grace, starts to flow through us. And as that power, which is this light, flows through us, all the different colors of the window pane of our karma and so forth light up bright, and some of them aren't so pretty. This is what we see in spirituality. We think, oh, this or that spiritual teacher or famous person, did some wrong or fell spiritually. What they do, everyone does. Okay, it's not a straight up kind of thing. You have to work out your karma. And when you begin to realize that, that's one advantage of partnership, of marriage, to be, that's one of its purposes. Because in the committed relationship in which you, day to day, year after year, how many years has it been? I'm not going to say it because I'm going to be wrong, right? Anyway, it's been a few years. 30-something? See, I put her on the spot. Look, she's turning red. Anyway, whatever number of years, 37, like I said. But spiritually, the purpose and the advantage of a committed relationship is you realize how slowly we change and what our issues really are. And does that mean that we've accomplished nothing? I mean, scientists give us a vision of reality, at least from their point of view, that's so vast that it makes no wonder so many people think, well, just get ours. What difference does it make? It's all meaningless. It's just, when you start contemplating billions of years, it's like, gee, what's the point? Well, there is a point, because we are that also. One time, one of our young friends, we congratulated him on happy birthday. He was maybe 30 or something, and he said, "I'm not 30, I'm 1,000,000,000 years old." And that's right. We have come from of old. When Jesus said, "Before Abraham, I am," he wasn't boasting. He was the I am is that light, and it's eternal. And so, as we grow through this, and the other thing Kriyananda often would say is, when you see a flaw in yourself, you should rejoice, not hide and be embarrassed. If you fall or you slip, get up. I mean, don't we admire people of willpower and who overcome obstacles like Gandhi and King, resistance? Don't we admire people who affirm their ideals and have hope for a better world, hope for a better future and a better life? Aren't those the stories that are the warp and woof of life, of drama, of literature, and every form of human striving? Are those who get up, those who try? It's not whether you fail or fall down. I mean, look at all the great inventors in modern times, and Edison with his seeking filaments. If you haven't failed very much, you haven't accomplished very much, and that's the reality. And so this inner light creates this indwelling light, which is the life of men, St. John says in that first wonder. It's the most deeply inspiring chapter in the Bible. That light is always present with us, and wherever that light shines, that's our reality. And that's also our problem, you see. Because wherever we are, we think that's reality. And so we're stuck. And that is why that light has to shine more brilliantly, more brightly, in some form, so that we can begin to see it. And like Arjuna asking Krishna, what does the person of realization look like? How he walks, how he talks, how he acts in this world. It's not that simple. Krishna avoided the question altogether. Yogananda supposedly liked mangoes. Well, maybe most of us like mangoes, but maybe some of you say, yuck, what's that funny taste? It's not about mangoes, you see. And so though we don't know much about Jesus Christ or even Buddha because they lived so long ago, who would follow Jesus Christ if he was a grump? Oh, just sort of, let's come follow me, we'll get crucified together. I mean, give me a break. People followed him because he was a soul of a great light, great joy, wisdom, great strength, you see. And so the great light of God descends, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, has been promised eternally. When virtue declines and vice predominates, I, the light, incarnate. And so it is that such great lights come to the world according to our need. And this is why, when we see that light, when it's clear, as it can be in other people who come in, because we don't earn the opportunity to have in the body such a one until we're ready. If we can't take let's say, the critique of our partner or spouse in daily life, how do you think you're going to get a guru? You're not. I learned long ago why I wasn't born in the life of Paramahansa Yogananda. I learned that early on. My teacher, Swami Kriyananda, did not take on the role of guru. And yet, even in his life, it was not an easy path to be around him. And so, not that he ever told me or others what to do, but the light that shined through him was such that the shadow that fell upon others, we hide from the shadows. We don't want to admit those things. We can only take the intensity of that light for short periods. And so it was that over the years that some of us knew him, people came and people went. And in Yogananda's ashram, the great light of an avatar, do you think people were attracted? Well, sure, they were attracted, but they couldn't handle it. Kriyananda said it was like a revolving door, people coming, people going, you see. We need that light, and we are drawn to it only as much as we can handle. And so it's important to be compassionate towards yourself, but also towards other people. You can't see how far down the board the nail is when we're trying to remove a nail from the board. So this great light is here, and it illuminates our life, but it also makes our life seem real. And that's our problem, you see. That's our issue. We need one another. We need people who feel attracted to, because that light isn't of one color. If you're attracted to Buddha or Krishna or Rama or Muhammad or these different ones, this is because that light is the light that draws you in tune with what you need. I was thinking, I've thought before, it's a little bit difficult or delicate to say, but, everyone has this self-enclosure that seems so real to them, and it's for that reason that we change so slowly. But there it is. Imagine somebody who would kill themselves and others for some ideal that they apparently believe in. We condemn that, and of course it's wrong objectively, but we don't know the trajectory of that soul. After all, there are people who kill others and not themselves for gain or out of prejudice or anger, lynch people because of the color of their skin. Who is going up the ladder and who is going down the ladder? You can't say, not really. When Jesus declared himself, when he said towards the end of the life he wanted to do a house cleaning, Yogananda did the same thing actually. And he said to test people, eat my body and drink my blood. Well, you're kidding. Many, the Bible says, walked with him no more. Do you think you would recognize Jesus Christ? Not so sure. And so we can't know that of another person. And it's difficult to know that for ourselves. So we must seek the light in order that the light can shine into our hearts and we can see, as it were, clearer and better. This is the role of the great masters who come into the world from time to time. This is the role of saints on their way to becoming masters. This is the role of one another who are sincere in our efforts to be light bearers, to be vessels and vehicles, instruments of peace, as St. Francis gave us that prayer. Actually, I'm told it's been said that the origin of that peace prayer is from William the Conqueror. Yogananda claimed he was William the Conqueror in a past life. How could you see the light in such a life is my point. You cannot easily. That was a time of great brutality, and I won't go into the life of William and the spiritual mission that caused Yogananda to be incarnate as William the Conqueror, but it opens up. It isn't important. His statement of it opens up for us vast vistas of inquiry, which have for their main point for us to be cautious in the judgments we render upon ourselves and upon other people. We take on these roles in life, but if the light changed, if circumstances changed, would we still have those roles? Never be fooled by a role that anybody has. Seek the light within them, and if the light goes out in them, the light goes out. Seek it perhaps elsewhere. That light is impersonal, it's universal. And we have the only choice we possess as souls is not this career or that relationship or this medicine or this therapy and so forth. Oh, we have those choices naturally, but the only important choice we have is to come into the light. All the rest is just details. And you may have some very intense karma to overcome. And yet, if you are sincere, and if you truly seek the light, and allow the light to enter you, and illuminate those dark areas with faith and hope, and the charity not to judge others also, then we will rise spiritually. We will begin to have that light more fully in our lives. The light the darkness that does not comprehend the light is in all things. This podium, I doubt, is in God consciousness, for example. And we might be thinking of that wonderful football game that we might be watching right now. You see? I remember, many times Padma and I, and maybe some of you here too, would watch a video with Swami Kriyananda. I think sometimes he'd watch these old movies just so he wouldn't have to be the center of attention in a small group visiting him, or just to shut us up from, yakking constantly or pestering him with questions. But I think he went into the great movie. I don't know if he really watched the movie at all, but it was a time to spend in his company. And there's nothing we cannot do that is legitimate and appropriate to our station in life, our duties in life, in which the light cannot be felt. The light cannot be radiated silently, if need be, if only be. We simply have to learn, and meditation is the most effective and fastest way to access that inner light. I love the English language in this sense for this reason. The word light in our language refers both to weight and to the spectrum of light. And that's a wonderful thing, because lightness, not everyone sees light in meditation, certainly, all the time, but feeling that lightness that is accepting, embracing of others, and accepting of our challenges, this is light. And we can have light wherever we go and whatever we do. But if we will seek it in the silence of the soul, this is the great gift to our time and age, is that despite the crises and the bitterness, the violence, and the uncertainty which seems to be increasing, the darkness is increasing on this planet. And if you don't think so, maybe you should read the news. But the light is also, it's just that the light is silent, and we need people to stand in the light and to express that light. But this is our dilemma. And so we see in the lives of Gandhi and King that juxtaposition. Gandhi was ruthlessly self-honest in the pettiness that sometimes ruled his life and his motivations and so forth. Just astonishing, like the Confessions of St. Augustine and other great souls down through the ages. And I admired that too in our teacher, Swami Kriyananda, who was transparent, ruthlessly self-honest. And sometimes when that vibration turned its eyes upon some of us, it was a little uncomfortable. But that's okay. Imagine living your life completely transparently. Imagine all your thoughts. When you think your thoughts are private, you haven't gotten too far spiritually. When you realize that your thoughts are the genesis of your selfhood, then you're on to something. But the age in which we live in is a very long way from that being the norm. But you don't have to wait. I don't have to wait. I came out of my seclusion with something I might say 1,000,000 times to my friends or in classes, but which came to me like a bucket of bricks, which is in the silence of my week of seclusion, trying to focus and be mindful, meditating long hours as best I could. I realize, this is no realization to any of you here either, but all those stupid thoughts we have, 30 seconds later, I can't even remember what I was thinking 30 seconds ago, what to mention yesterday. What a waste of mental energy. Our thoughts are worthless. Occasionally they're necessary for tying my shoes or writing an email. That's fine if I'm doing something specific, but the rest of the time it's just, it's garbage. It's just garbage. And so I really rededicated myself, and it's been just so blissful to chant, use mantra, various things, talk to my guru silently. There's a million ways by which it manifests, but what the heck? If the mind isn't needed, get rid of it. Lift yourself up to the inner light. And the flood is just so satisfying that I just can't imagine a better way to live. But we have to experience that. Even in my life, among the lives of people I know more closely than perhaps others, some of our flaws are just amazing. Why don't we change? Well, we change from the inside out. The rest of that is just filters for it. So be compassionate to yourself first, to others. Develop that light, live in that light, and the rest really doesn't matter. Because when we die, and we will die, we'll just change the light we will draw from this hunk of bones and flesh and so forth. It'll reside in quietude for a little while, probably, for most of us. And then it'll come back again. Just as King and Gandhi struggled year after year. You know, they left their life. I mean, the end of their lives was a time of great sorrow for them. At the time King was assassinated, as far as he could see, he was a failure. You know, the Johnson administration was breathing down his throat. J. Edgar Hoover was, well, never mind about him. I mean, it was, all the other black leaders were squabbling and fighting, and the young guys were coming up, the more militant ones, and his work was a wreck. Gandhi, everything he worked for decades, erupted, and they won their freedom from the British, and what did they do? They slaughtered each other. What else is new, right? We see it in different countries that have been freed from communist rule all over the country. Give them their freedom and they kill each other, you know. That's the way it is. We learn the hard way. And so he was down in the dumps. But in both cases, there was a part of each man who was untouched by it. You can see it if you study the last days of their lives. When he went to the mountaintop, King, in that last speech he gave the night before his assassination, I saw, pardon me, my irreverence, but somebody wrote, how important do you have to be assassinated instead of murdered? I don't know, but good question. But that mountaintop speech, and he had given it before, but I think some of us believe, that in his life, as much as he struggled, he did see the mountaintop. And it wasn't what his hearers probably thought. He saw the light, the glory of God, in which he knew. He said, I'm not fearing any man, in that speech. And he knew he was going down. Well, you're going down too, by the way. We don't get out alive. You're going to be, well, murdered. Not assassinated. You're not important enough. We're not important enough. We're all under a death sentence. And when we live in that light, we are eternal and we are free.
I'd like to read to you Yogananda's words from Whispers from Eternity. Make me feel that everything is joy. I am the foam of happiness spooned out of the sea of thy joy. I am the ocean life bounding with the billows of joy. Endless eddies of my laughter spread through all hearts. When the time comes to depart, I will retire to wakeful sleep on the bosom of thy infinite joy, a ripple ever dancing with billows of all thy joy. I am a bubble of joy, struggling to burst and unite with the ocean of joy. I feel thy joy in all things. Make me a lighthouse of joy also, guiding storm-tossed vessels of life to safety on the shores of thy joy. Let every vine of my activity bear large grape clusters of thy joy. Let me drink the divine wine, pressed from the grapes of all life's joys. Oh,